Good afternoon. This is Stockton 360 News Magazine at KXVS, the voice of Stockton. I'm Professor Jimenez, and alongside me is Christina Fugazi, Councilwoman of the City of Stockton. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you. Great to be back.
Great. And also alongside Christina, we have a businessman who's no introductions needed, really, because everybody knows this guy. He is actually Mr. Tony Mannor. How are you, Tony?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome to Stockton 360 News Magazine. We're here the day after Independence Day, July 5th, on a Wednesday, and we are going to be discussing lots of stuff because it is the summertime. Can you feel the heat? I feel the heat. Summer. So this is a special time of the year for Stockton. It's also a special time because Miss Fugazi always comes in and she does give us a quick update of things, but in this case it's more of a briefing for the summer. So I'm going to hand it over to you and you can run with it, Christina.
Well, thank you so much. This summer, yes, we've had rain this summer, like torrential hail and downpours, and then we've had sweltering heat, 111 degrees. I know my house got up to 91. But we've also had some, I think, increasing challenges in the city with fire. We had, murders 2 days in a row, actually within 20 hours, and then another one, unfortunately, last night. Yesterday, we had, 2 people shot, one person beat within an inch of his life. I don't know how he is, but, he suffered quite a bit of trauma to his head. And it doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop. And I don't know in terms of momentum where we are. I know that we're actually at 22 murders for this year. I should say homicides for this year. Last year at this time we were at 25. But it just seems like as of late, things have escalated. And I know that many of us have been dealing with other issues of crime, be it recently illegal fireworks, which had me scared a little yesterday, illegal dumping, people trespassing on our properties, people destroying property, people stealing other people's property. And it gets to the point where you want to say enough is enough.
Sure.
And what can we do? What can we do as a community to work together in order to make the changes that we want to see happen? And so that's one of the reasons why I asked Tony if he would be on the show today, because Tony is very active. He is letting people know what's going on in the community. He's taking pictures. He's putting people on blast that are doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Wow.
I know he had done a post about a group of individuals who literally were kind of like a gang of opportunists, where they were looking for properties to take advantage of the homeowner, the business owner, and they had created a little alcove, like a little office almost, where they got together and planned out what they were going to do. What? And I saw Tony post that, and he's just like, when is it going to stop? And I said, I saw it, and I said, I'm making a call right now. And I did. I contacted the deputy chief, Trevor Womack, and he said, Christina, we're going to send somebody over there. We're going to, and they did. They did. And it was nice to see that kind of immediate action, which isn't always possible. So, for example, like last night, all the fireworks, people have been very receptive to reporting the illegal fireworks. But when you have 2 murders, that takes some of those police resources that we could have had out, doing that. The first priority is, of course, people that have been shot.
Sure.
Or so there were 2 people shot. But it really is. You sit there and you say 1 step forward, maybe 2 step back. And so I know, like I said, I asked Tony to come on because I know that he's trying to engage more people in the public.
Sure.
Because we have to empower one another to say, I'm going to do something about this. And it's not necessarily going out there and, tackling that person and, holding them down until the police come, even though some of us have done that before. But it is a matter of making sure that we have the tools necessary
Sure.
to stop that kind of behavior.
Right.
And so, Tony, I didn't know if I know you had something happen today,
Right.
That just kind of added fuel to your activist fire.
Right. We've been dealing, like you said, we've been dealing with the criminal transient population in Stockton, specifically in our area around the Pacific Swain, Robin Hood, down to Hammer Lane area.
Okay.
And that encompasses, where I live, where I work, where my family lives. We see the same people out there, and we know they're moving from home to home. The vacant houses that are in our neighborhood, or they're breaking into vacant businesses. They're setting up shop. That's where they're bringing all the stolen materials. Then they're flipping it. We knew where they were taking it to trade it for crack. And I know that sounds like a joke, but it was legitimately they're trading it for crack. And then we would see them go and smoke it later on.
Right.
And when Christina called me and asked me to be on the show, I was like, sure. She goes, well, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about this criminal transient problem that you seem to never shut up about? And I was like, sure, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. And no kidding, a couple hours later, I get a phone call from the police. My family's home got broken into.
Oh, my gosh.
And during the course of the conversation, I'm in and out, and I'm a little bit worried because, we don't know what's taken. This is my family's property, and it's all kinds of things. We're going through trying to make sure that there's nobody else in the home and has a weapon, so we have to wait for PD to come out.
Sure.
And while they're dealing with all this other chaos that's going on in Stockton, they have to take time out to come and make sure that the house is safe so that, I don't get shot when I go in to make sure that the house is secure. So I appreciate them, everybody that showed up, and, thank you so much for coming out and helping us out with that. But so they came out, they cleared the home. I was able to find out, what was taken. Then the officers, they had to respond because I think one of the shootings had come in, so they had to leave. And, 2 of the officers stayed with me to make sure everything was safe.
Right.
Well, in that period of time, I overheard the name of the individual that they caught. The reason why they contacted me wasn't because the alarm went off, was because several blocks down the street, they found this individual breaking into another business. And on his person had property with my family's name on it.
I see.
And so they were able to reach back and contact us, and it took an hour for him to get a hold of me. And so when I rush out, I thank him for trying to get a hold of me. But because of everything else that was going on, I think there was a stabbing at the same time. There were 2 shootings that they were investigating. There was a call that came out of 100 individuals fighting in the middle of the street from a house party. Wow. All these things are happening at the same time. They couldn't deal with some guy who just had some pretty worthless property. When they actually got to him, it's worthless. It's only valuable to us.
Right.
But it was some worthless things. It was, my dad's badge and some things like that really had no value to anyone other than us.
Right.
And so we closed up the house. Everything was fine, but I overheard one of the officers say the name of the individual to another officer while they're writing the report, and the name clicked. I recognized the name as one of the transients in the neighborhood. So now in my head, I know who I'm looking for, who's broke into my family's home, and I happened to drive past the house today because I got it. My dad's been ill, so I was on my way to the hospital to go tell him, hey, house is broken into. This is what's missing. We need to get an update to the report to the officers. As I'm driving by, I see 4 police cars, 5 houses down, and I see that transient sitting on the ground in handcuffs.
Oh, wow.
So I stop, and my kids are in the car, so I parked them next to Grandpa's house, and we walked down the street, and I waved one over, and I'm like, hi, is that, and I gave the person's name. He's like, yeah. He goes, how do you know? And I'm like, because he broke into our house last night. Yeah. And he goes, well, how do you know? And it's like, well, these are the things that he was caught with. And they go, well, he has those things inside this house right now. We caught him with that property. Wow. And it's like, all right, well, let's continue this. What do we need to do? So they sent evidence techs out to take fingerprints inside the home. And they asked me, they go, does any of this stuff belong to you? And it's like, yeah, all of that stuff's ours. So we got a lot of it back. As far as I can tell, we're still going through and cataloging what's missing.
Wow.
But those guys, I appreciate them. It was a vacant house. They could have really just scared the transients off, locked the door, and let it go. Those houses are actually being demolished tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So there was really no purpose. I think they were just in there doing a check to make sure nobody was there before the bulldozer showed up. But they happened to catch this guy. He happened to have some of our stuff. And I happened to be driving by at just the right moment. Everything worked in together. So last I heard, he was in the back of a police car on his way to county.
But see, that's a low-level crime.
Right.
So by the time they're done with the paperwork, he's probably already sitting at the bus stop, or
On his way
figured out somebody to come pick him up, or he's
Right.
walking. He's huffing it.
Absolutely.
Because my house was burglarized 4 times, and I took it upon myself to not be a victim. So I had pictures of family heirlooms that were stolen, and I hit every pawn shop within a 3-mile radius of my house and gave them full reports and said, if you have any of these items, please call me. Sure enough, one of the pawn shops called me and said, wait, I got more stuff than what you have here. But come on over. And when he showed me everything, I said, I got that for my 16th birthday. I got that from my grandmother. Those were for my 21st birthday. And I said, and I can tell you the brooch, what's on there exactly in detail. You don't even have to show it to me. I can tell you what it is. And he was just like, oh, wow. And I said, no, all of that was mine. But that was at one pawn shop. Once that owner gave me the information of the kid who pawned it, then I was able to give that to a CSO who was working, who could then go through some of the other pawn slips looking for that individual. Sure enough, got a hit,
Right.
got a hit, and the individual went to jail for 3 months and was supposed to pay me restitution in the amount of like $600, even though they took $25,000 worth of stuff. And I have been getting a check like annually for like $90, $95. So whenever I get a check, and then I was, like I said, I was robbed again.
Right.
And they caught the individuals because there were fingerprints all over my house. There was blood, there was DNA, not that they did a DNA check, but it was teenagers, it was kids again, and they brought me the lineup on a card, and the thing is, I've been a teacher 22 years, so I recognized one of the kids on there. I said, are you telling me this kid robbed me? And they were like, we're not used to somebody knowing somebody on there.
Right.
And they said, regardless, do any of the people on this sheet have permission to be in your house? And it wasn't him.
Right.
But I said, no, none of these people have permission to be in my house. And it's tough because, we have businesses. I live by Family Dollar, and I've been in line at Family Dollar and watched somebody go in, take stuff, and walk out. And I've been like, wait, hey, look, the person's stealing stuff. And they just keep bringing up.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, it's a low-level crime. People won't even come out.
No.
But Assembly Member Jim Cooper has a bill that is, if you, within a 12-month period, commit any type of theft that totals, because it's supposed to be a one-shot total of $995 or more. But if you, within 12 months, do that amount or more, then it's mandatory jail time.
Really?
Yeah, 1 year.
They're going to have to build some more prisons.
Yeah. But, I mean, we got to have some kind of deterrent.
Oh, absolutely.
Same with the fireworks. I was like, with the fireworks, I'm like, can we add one more zero? It's $1,000.
Yeah.
Can we add one more zero? I mean,
Exactly.
like, really make it hurt. Because guess what? Those fireworks cost more than $1,000
Right.
for a lot of them, and they're turning around and selling them. So what we did confiscate, believe you me, there was more where that came from that already has made it into the market.
Yeah.
You're right.
And the confiscation, I'm sure, hurt them more than the $1,000 fine.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to somebody, actually. I speak to a lot of business owners and managers and stuff like that around town because I do make myself so public and I do take a lot of heat. People feel like they can kind of message me, and I welcome it. Absolutely. I want to hear their stories. And they're telling me that, at some of those stores that you're talking about, 8 times a day, $1,000 a cart, and it walks out and they're not allowed to touch them. Because of the corporate responsibility and the liability, they're not allowed to touch it. They can lose their jobs. So they're at a point now where they're just like, we understand that we're going to lose $8,000 a day in merchandise.
Right.
And we're trying to decide whether or not we're going to stay in Stockton because of this. And I mean, if you can really imagine that, I mean, if you hate jobs and you hate these stores, then you probably don't care. Right. But Stockton's really teetering economically because we don't have the jobs. We have, people that are trying to get into the workforce. We have kids that are begging for jobs, during the summertime, or they're getting out of high school. and they're not sure if they're going to go to college or not sure if they're going to go to trade school, and they're just looking for something to where they can contribute to their family. Maybe the father's not in the home, maybe the mother's not in the home, maybe there's an injured or ill family member. They want to contribute and they have no way to, because right now, you know, if if you're not, you know, have some sort of experience, you know, it's hard to get a job, and the entry-level jobs are just hiring people that have college degrees at this point.
It's true.
Because there's just no jobs available.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we don't do something, if we don't turn this around, if we don't change the culture to where people are no longer going to tolerate this type of behavior and hold people accountable, we're going to start losing those jobs. And we already are. People are leaving. Businesses are closing up Stockton. I know people that are selling their businesses right now. They're trying to get out with whatever they can get.
Right,
and they're leaving.
And I, you know, my district spans from to the west, Boggs Track and Pixie Woods, you know, Lewis Park, you know, to the far west, including the port, and then goes all the way over to between Harding Way and Martin Luther King, down to Pock, Mariposa, and Farmington Road. So I have the oldest part of the city, but there along Hazleton, you know, the amount of, you know, individuals that are just passing by every day, those businesses are hurting, and some of them have been here for 50 years. And I've had people that have said, listen, it's just not worth it to me anymore, and we've asked for help, and we've asked for help. Marble Palace does a ridiculous amount of business. They supply locally, nationally, internationally, counters, custom made. I mean, they pay over $2 million in taxes.
Wow.
There, okay, and they've contacted me and said, we need help. I mean, we've got people that are cutting into our business. I mean, they can't walk off with granite or marble. It's just too heavy.
Right.
But they can shut our business down by stealing wire, you know, copper wiring, getting in, you know, our compressors, all that kind of stuff, that then slows us down from being able to do our business. And it's like, you know, what's the answer? And so I was part of the homeless task force that went back to New York City, and the sheriff and I both spoke at COMA, Coalition of Mexican Americans, the other day, and we have a program that's going to be rolling out in October, hopefully. But here's the problem. So we have individuals that we can offer the program to, but what do you do with the ones that say, nah, I'll pass? Then what do you do? Nah, I'm not interested. And you have individuals that like robbed your parents' house, and no, I don't want to do that. So then what is your alternative?
Right. I talked a little bit about that, you know, back during the election, and that is that we need to change. We need to redefine the terms, and too often people are lumping these criminal transients in with the general homeless population. And I did my best to kind of differentiate the different types of people that we have living on the street, whether it be the mentally disabled that there, when we had the floods, this poor guy, bless his heart, we were open for business and he was down near the end, and normally we don't allow people to hang out in the parking lot. It's, you know, it just attracts problems. But he's there and he's got his poncho on and he's got his cart, and so I went over to talk to him just to kind of check him out, see if we have people that try to sell drugs or you know, mess with our patrons. So I take point. I go out and I talk to him myself. And so I started talking to him, and I realized that he was sort of mentally arrested. His comprehension level was really close to like a 6-year-old. And as I was talking to him, I was explaining to him, I go, look, you know, you can't stay here, but here are some places that you might be able to go. I go, you need to get up and out of the rain. I go, there's going to be a flood tonight. And he started crying. He goes, what do you mean? What's a flood? So I explained to him, a lot of water is going to come in. It's going to push some things around. If you're on the ground, it's going to kind of sweep you around. And he goes, well, I don't want to die. He goes, where can I go? I don't want to die. He goes, are we going to die? And he just started crying. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I did my best to help him and set him up for at least the night, just so that he felt comfortable and that somebody cared about him. We have those people out on the street, and those people need help.
Sure.
And, you know, I'm just as compassionate as the next person. I talk a lot about the criminal transients, but these people need help. And then we have the people that I refer to as the temporarily homeless, and these are people that due to medical bills or lost jobs or whatever, their personal situation, they're in a temporary state where maybe 3 months at a job, they can be back into a home, they can be back, into a sort of a semblance of a normal life. Then we have the criminal transients that are predators. And these are the people that are on the streets, and I see them every night around 4 o'clock. I remember one night we had somebody break into our back lot, and I had somebody doing an overnight janitorial job. And he walked out and he opened up the back door and he's face to face with this guy, and he closes the door back up and he calls me, and I'm like, all right, call PD, I'm on my way. And as I'm driving there, I see PD responding because it's 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I think on like a Thursday night or Wednesday, and it was really quiet in Stockton at that particular time. So any cop in the neighborhood just swung by. And I called the janitor back and I'm like, hey, I go, what that guy look like? And so he gives me a description. I go, okay, I know where he's at. He's at O'Reilly's. I go, tell them they need to come over here because they need to catch him before I catch him. And so the officers came over and they detained him, and he didn't have any of my property on him. So really they couldn't hold him for anything. They didn't even have him on the property. They didn't have him with my property. So there was no burglary. There was no trespassing. He was just a guy on the street. So they're just telling him, hey, you have no business. Don't be back behind locked gates, that kind of thing, for whatever it's worth. They did the most that they were capable of doing at that time. And as he's leaving, I start talking to the officers, and then all of a sudden there's 15, 20 people with shopping carts come out of nowhere. And the officers are like, what the heck's going on? It's like the Walking Dead out here. And it's like, I go, where are you normally at 4 o'clock? And he goes, I don't know. I go, you're probably eating your lunch, having breakfast. And he goes, well, yeah. And I go, yeah, they know. I go, so they all come at 4 o'clock. So between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, you'll see all the criminal transients out with their shopping carts, going door to door, into people's garages, into their cars, stealing, and they have stacks of blankets on top so that they can hide all their goodies in there. Then they roll it back over to where the street was, where they were flipping it for rock. And that's why you would see all these empty shopping carts back on Glendora and Evelyn. I go, that's because those are the empty carts. And then the next night, 4 o'clock, they go grab the carts and they're off and doing it again. This is an every night thing. And he starts laughing. He goes, are you serious? I go, yeah. I go, skip lunch or meet me over at 7-Eleven tomorrow. I'll show you. It's the exact same people every night. And they come back with weed eaters and lawnmowers and all kinds of stuff. I go, and they're not buying them at 4 o'clock in the morning.
God.
So they're
borrowing them.
Yeah. These guys know how to work the system. They know where the cops are, when they are. And it's not the cops' fault. Everyone needs to take a lunch break, They're entitled to it. They've been working, and 4 o'clock is literally the quietest time in Stockton, other than these property crimes that are taking place. So, but I'm in the middle of it because I'm the one that's driving around at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning after we close up and run to 7-Eleven, and I get a box of cut fruit and coconut water, and that's my dinner. And I'm driving around because I can't sleep because I just got off work. So I drive up and down the streets and I see, who's breaking into cars and things like that. And that's what I talk about, are the things that I see when I'm out in public. And then we have like I said, the temporarily homeless, we have the mentally disabled, we have the criminal transients. And then I put the homeless veterans into a separate category.
Okay.
And the reason why I do that is because they have a variety of issues. But my personal opinion is, of those 4 groups of people, those are the only ones that we actually owe a debt to. So as a civilization, as a country, as a community, we owe a debt to this group of people. Now, they may have a drug addiction, they may have a mental PTSD, whatever their personal issue is that's a result from their service. We have to take ownership of that.
Yes.
Because they traded that issue for this country.
That's right.
So I really focus on helping them. As much as the temporarily homeless. The mentally disabled, we should have, and I thought we did, and I'm pretty sure we do have systems in place to help some of these people. And when I talk to folks at the county level, they're telling me that the biggest issue right now is maintaining contact.
Right.
They can help them, but these people don't know that they have to come back.
Their prescription runs out, and they don't know how to refill it, and then they, slip and, back into their mental issues, or they miss an appointment, or they move and they don't let their caseworker know.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that then end up happening, which is why, we were looking at a site with the former mayor, which is in my district, and it's a 100-unit motel where you could house some people. You could put, you can designate buildings for, women and their children or the men's, but you would have those services come there.
Right.
Because if you're asking individuals to come to wherever you are, you might as well forget it. Because what
That's
if they
right.
don't have bus fare? What if they like I said, forget? Something happens. That's why if we had a place where we could provide those wraparound services, provide them with mental assistance or substance abuse classes, or assistance, as well as WorkNet, providing them with job skills or training, make sure that they're getting their Social Security or disability, and that what they do at Gospel Center Rescue Mission. Gospel Center Rescue Mission helps manage when individuals get their SSI check or their disability check. 100% goes to that individual. They just help them manage it.
Right.
Because some people, because I saw them when my boyfriend was opening up his restaurant downtown, that would sit on the benches like by the movie theater 24/7, and the first of the month they get their check and they've got it blown 2 days later, and then they're panhandling. And I have to tell you, I mean, that when we are trying to attract businesses to come to Stockton, and we're trying to attract, anything to come to Stockton, and they drive through town, and if you go by the Crosstown Freeway, if you, go downtown, if you actually, any part of the city nowadays, there's no part of the city that is immune to having one of the four things that was mentioned, one of the four different types of individuals that are on our streets.
Right.
It makes people take a step back.
It does. And, we've gone through this, even when I was in the tech industry, we had companies that were looking at Stockton. I had friends that worked with those companies. And it's a big issue when the conversation takes place on their side about work-life balance and the safety of their employees living in Stockton. And the whole point was, why are we going to move to Stockton if we're going to continue to live in Tracy, because we don't want to live in Stockton?
Sure.
And so those conversations are taking place internally at these companies about us. And we need to take ownership of that. When I talk about the biggest kind of clapback I get when I talk about the things in Stockton that need to be fixed is they say, well, everybody has problems. It's like, well, that's great. Everybody has problems.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. But our problems are severe. They're drastic. We're in the top 4 percentile in the entire United States, according to the FBI, of crime. We're the top 4%. That means 96% of the country is doing a better job than we are.
Right.
So, there's a reason why companies are going to Lathrop and not here.
Right.
Or Tracy
or Mountain House.
Right.
Amazon is in Mountain House now.
And there's nothing out there. I mean, there's nothing from a facilities perspective. There's not great entertainment and stuff like that in Mountain House that that's not in Stockton.
Sure.
So
it's a satellite.
it's
Delta
really
campus.
there's really the crime.
Yeah.
And so
is.
I get frustrated because this is going to sound really, really nasty, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly in front of people, but I've dealt with people who are in domestic violence situations.
Sure.
And, when you talk to somebody who's in that situation, they say, well, all marriages have problems. It's like, yeah, but when my wife and I have a problem, it's over what we're having for dinner. It's over, whether or not the kids are going to go on a sleepover or not. It's not because one of us has beat the other one.
That's true.
And to equate those problems, you're diminishing the situation that you're in. And that's how I feel about Stockton. We're in a situation to where we're turning a blind eye to it, and you can't fix it. You get out of that situation or you remedy the situation. But
Exactly.
you don't gloss over it. You don't pretend like it's not there, because one of these days, one of those two people are going to end up dead. And that's what we tell women, that's what we tell men when you're in an abusive relationship is get out before you die. And that's how I feel about Stockton. So we either fix it or you get out before you die. And I can't tell someone, when I have friends that are leaving, it's like, I can't blame you for leaving, but I wish you would stay. I wish you would stay and fight with me, because I need more people like you to stay, to help fix this, to turn this around. But I understand why you're leaving. So I wish you the best, and I love you, and I hope one day you come back, because I need people like you. I don't need people like the ones that broke into my dad's house. I don't need the people that are shooting kids walking down the street in the middle of the afternoon. I don't need those people.
Right.
Those are the people we need to push out.
Well, see, and that's the whole thing with the city council as well. I mean, I get a number of calls from people daily or messages about, well, why isn't city council doing something about this or that? And so I look for policies, things that we can maybe enact. But again, political will is huge. And what moves political will is public participation.
Absolutely.
And if the public doesn't show up, like, look, take Fair Oaks, for example, Fair Oaks Library. The public showed up repeatedly and said, this is what we want. It's our tax money. It's our tax dollars. This is what we want. You said you were going to restore city services. Here's a city service we want. And it's been a wonderful catalyst for that community. I mean, it's a game changer. It's absolutely a game changer. So when we look citywide at some policies or some programs or some things that we can do, sometimes while we're like, okay, yeah, that's nice, but where are we going to find it in the budget and blah, blah, blah. Well, but guess what? When the public starts showing up and speaking on the dais, speaking before council, and the numbers start showing up, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's what I truly believe. But we have to work together. Yeah. So my neighborhood knows. I mean, they know where I live. They walk by my house. They know, and they will send me a message on Nextdoor. They will send me a message on Facebook. They will text me. They will tell me somebody just dumped here, or this house they're doing drug deals out of, or this is a casino in our, because they trust me. So they'll come to me, and I'm like, okay, can you call the police, please, too? Yeah. But I will send the chief a message, or one of the deputy chiefs, or even captain or lieutenant, or anybody that I can think that will really go and look into that, that has the authority to say, okay, I got this message, I need to at least drive by and check it out.
Right.
But the public can't turn that blind eye. That the public can't just put their head in the sand and try to block it out, because that's not doing anything. That's trying to ignore the problem doesn't change it, doesn't make it go away.
No.
So it's very important that the public, I do AskStockton.com. Not everybody is a fan of it, and it's not really AskStockton.com. It's Ask Stockton. You have to go to the city website. You can't type that in. Right. But for example, there was a stop sign not too far from my house that a neighbor sent me a picture that had bullet holes in it and said, come on now, can we replace this already? I mean, this was from a shooting that was weeks ago, and I really don't want to look at it anymore. I put it in, guess what? It was replaced today. I put it in this weekend, and we had the holiday, but it got replaced today. I got a message, here you go, it was replaced.
And you know what, that's important. People overlook the small things like that, and when I say small things, it's just a sign, right? It's just a sign. But what it happens is you get people, and this is going to sound lame, but
I think it's okay.
I'll see it, and they use that picture. They'll take a picture next to it with the bullet holes, and they'll use it on the cover of their album, and they'll say straight out the 209, and so that becomes iconic of what Stockton is.
A moniker,
right? It's what we're known for. And the interesting thing is what you said about the community. And one of the reasons why I did run, and I chose to run, was, well, one, because I just kept coming face to face with the criminal issue.
You ran for mayor, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I actually forgot that intro. I didn't know if you wanted me to put that in.
Yeah, I lost. No, what the issue was is that I was just coming face to face with the crime issue in our area, and nobody was talking about it that I heard. So I really wanted to get that message in there. I wanted to get that part of the conversation started. But because I've been so vocal and I've been so out in the front and I talk to people and I've been so kind of face forward with the transients in my neighborhood, people in the neighborhood have started reaching out to me. And, I honestly, I'm nobody but a restaurant owner. I have my little corner. I do my
father and a son and a resident.
And I really do my best just to make sure my staff, my patrons are safe. And that's my biggest goal in my family. And because of that, there's been this kind of thing that's happened around me where people are like, okay, you're willing to get in their face, so I'm going to give you information to help you out. And that's what happened recently. Somebody contacted me, and they're like, please come meet me. I need to tell you something. And because of life, my kids and swim practice and all these different things that they're doing, I just kept missing this person. And finally, they sent me a message like, are you at Finn's now? And it's like, yes, I'm here. Come on by, let's talk. And so they came in and they said, look, my spouse, his friends, they're riding their bikes late at night, and they're going out and they're confronting these people, and they're telling them, you're not going to be in our neighborhood anymore. you're going to go somewhere else. Don't care where you go, just not our neighborhood. And so, yeah, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, okay, well, that's a little intense, but
vigilante.
You're right.
I know.
And that's what they said. But they said that they weren't doing it in a way to get themselves hurt. They were going out and talking to people.
Way.
And they're saying, hey, look, we just wanted to get to know you because I want to let you know the things that you're doing, they end tonight because we're going to be watching. And we're going to be around. We're going to snitch you off. And we're calling the cops. And we're going to do all these different things. And all the neighbors are going to know who you are. And we're all working together now. And they wanted me to know so that I could participate from whatever way I could. And I told them, I go, well, tell them to come by and see me when they're out riding their bikes at 3 o'clock in the morning so I don't think that they're part of the problem. And so, they're coming out to come see me. But the community, through stuff like that, the neighborhood app on my phone, all the...
Report thieves, crime in Stockton.
That, the community watch. Kevin's running like 2 or 3...
Kevin's great.
Kevin's awesome.
He sends me stuff, and I'm like...
Kevin from the Ave.
No, Kevin Shaver?
Yeah,
Kevin Shaver.
He lives actually not too far from the studio here.
Okay.
But he literally is the eyes and ears, and he'll take pictures, and he'll send them off. And he's another one that says, nobody's doing anything. I'm like, I'll report it. I'll send it in. I'll try to get it addressed.
Somebody stole one of my flags.
I know.
In front of our
and they
business.
were riding their bike with the flag.
They're riding down the street.
They took your flag.
So somebody took a picture and they go, hey, if somebody lost, and it's a big Irish flag, right?
Yeah,
and it's where is that going to come from? So somebody posted and it's like, hey, if somebody lost a flag, and I'm like, that looks like my flag. So I call up the restaurant and I'm like, hey, I go, are we missing a flag? And the cook runs out and he goes, yeah, what happened to it? I go, it's going down Pacific Avenue right now.
Yeah.
So I post up, I'm like, yeah, it's my flag. If somebody sees it, let me know. I want to come get it. And Kevin calls me and I'm picking up my kids from school and he goes, hey, I see your flag. It's over here across the street from Tap Plastics. And I was like, oh, okay. I go, I'm picking up my kids. I'm on my way. So I start going. And I guess because he was taking pictures of them so that I would know what they were looking like, they surrounded his car and started making threats. And so he calls me up. I'm like, get out of there, dude. I go, and I had never met Kevin at this point. We just knew each other through Facebook. And I'm like, get out of there. I go, you don't need to be involved in that. And he's like, no, I'm going across the street. So he goes across the street and they follow him. Well, I'm telling him, I go, I'm like a couple blocks away. I'll be right there. So I pull up next to him and I see the car and I'm like, I'm assuming it's him. And then I see the flag in the back. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He goes, I got it back.
Yeah. That's Kevin.
Okay. And I go, what happened? He goes, I just went up and I took it. And I was like, okay. And, he's older than me. He's an older guy. And I'm an older guy. But these guys were across the street and they were making threats until I got there. And then
you got out of the car and they saw your size.
And I'm like, and I start pointing. I go, are those the guys threatening you? And then they kind of walked the other way. And then 2 Stockton police officers showed up for an unrelated issue and for something else. And we were like, hey, those guys. I go, we got it back. No big deal. But just heads up, these guys are out stealing stuff in the neighborhood. And they're like, all right, cool. So we took a picture. Kevin took a picture of me holding the flag. I got it back and I put it back up. Yeah. No kidding. Like 3 weeks later, somebody else stole the flag.
Yeah. But, that's
different person.
That's one of the great things. Social media has its drawbacks and its negatives, but positives are, the fact that information is getting out there immediately. I find out about shootings on Facebook before I get a message from, PD, from the chief or the deputy chiefs. I know about it by then. I mean, I have a very active neighbor that will tag me and post, Christina, did you know about this? And I do, and I don't like the word troll, but I inform myself by going to the different, report thieves, even Stockton, what the, whatever.
Yeah.
They were like, oh my God, we have a councilwoman on our page now. But what I do is I go through there and I say, hey, do you know this is happening in the city? Do you know that's happening? And with the fireworks thing, I sent a message saying, listen, anybody we arrest, we need to put their face up. I want everybody to know who it was that had it. And when I think about all these, even the low-level crimes, remember what we did when they did the sting on Wilson Way for all the, the Johns picking up
the pimping and all that?
Yeah. I'm like, we need to blast their face.
Exactly.
So that people know I need to be on guard when I see you, or when I see you, you're probably not up to anything good. Now, little, ticky-tack things, somebody's a first-time offender, okay, I'm not trying to put them on blast. But people that are repeat offenders, we need to know who they are, because otherwise we can't protect ourselves. And I, the house next to me is vacant. I had squatters that tried to come in. They didn't even last 12 hours because I'm not having it. I don't even need police here, okay? Right. But I've had people come in. I had 3 guys on bikes that drove down the drive, and I ran through the house, my dogs are barking, and I'm just like, hey, no. Turn around and go, oh, we're here to, no, you're not. Turn around and get out of here. Yeah. And the other day there was a gentleman who had a bat in his backpack that was walking down, and he starts yelling at me and cussing at me. And then I'm like, Tremaine? Tremaine? And he hears the guy cussing at me, and Tremaine went out the front door and met him. And then the dude was like, oh, hey, fam, it's all right. I just was, and while he's eating fruit from the tree that he got in the backyard, I'm trying to get him out of there. I'm thinking about buying this. And Tremaine's like, no, you're not, because it's not for sale, because I own it. And then he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, I don't want to see you back over here again. Keep moving. So thankfully I have Tremaine, but he was yelling at me, all kinds of things.
Has some presence, man. I wouldn't tangle with him.
No, well, because that's when he, came to the house, was after the 4th time I had been burglarized. Yeah. He replaced the window on the house, and then he's like, do you really feel safe here by yourself? I'm like, I'm fine. They're gonna have to take me out in a body bag. And he's like, well, that might be what happens, because he says I have this false sense of safety, he says I'm naive because I walk my district. And there's been lots of murders. I mean, I've walked the night before down a street where someone was killed that I said hello to that night. And it is, but I want to know. I mean, there are families, there are decent people living in my neighborhood that when they bought, they didn't buy thinking that they were going to have to live in the conditions that they do. Their house is beautiful, but what happens outside of that isn't always so beautiful. Right. And so I feel like it's my personal responsibility to go around and let people know that I see them and they can see me. And like those guys going out on bikes, late at night, I'm not having it. I'm not having it in my neighborhood, and I don't want to have it in my city either, because when I grew up, we didn't even lock the doors on our cars. My parents didn't get a lock on the house till like 2000, and they gave me a key. I'm like, what's this key for? They're like, for the house. I'm like, you're locking the house? Well, how am I going to get it? Well, that's why we gave you the key. But I mean, it's the way I was raised. I had this sense of security that has been stripped. I mean, I don't like that. I don't like the feeling that somebody can come and take whatever I have at any time. Yes. And even though I have cameras all over my house now, and I can see live on my phone, on it, when things are going on, it's sad where we have gotten to at this point, because I feel for my students. I worry about my students like all summer long when I'm not with them. If I hear anything about a kid, I'm like, okay, I hope it's not one of my kids that got hurt or things like that. I worry about them all the time, because it's a very different time than when we grew up.
And it's actually kind of interesting, because your story is very similar to ones that I hear from my friends, and even from my wife, who grew up in a small town in San Diego, and she grew up I still don't think they lock the door where they are, where she lives. And when I tell her about the stories about when I grew up, she just can't get her head around it, because it's so bizarre, it's so crazy. And so even in the 80s and 90s when I was a kid, partially because of what my dad did for a living, our car was firebombed, our house got shot up, we had bricks thrown through the window, our pets were murdered, just my whole life. And so we learned from a really young age how to tell if somebody was following you, how to tell if somebody was paying too much attention to you, who the child molesters in the neighborhood were. If my dad came home, the first thing he'd say is like, hey, how long has that blue car been sitting on the street? And it's like, well, it was here when we got here, from school. And he's like, wasn't there anybody in it? And the fact that I knew which blue car he was talking about shows you how tuned in we were to our surroundings.
How you were thinking, your mentality.
So I do that with my kids now. When we walk out of the grocery store, I ask them, I go, where's your danger spots? And so my son looks to the left, my daughter looks to the right, and they start identifying anybody who's a potential danger. You look at the columns to see if there's someone standing on the other side. If you look for the 40-year-old man on a BMX bike trolling through the parking lot.
I don't go to Walmart.
But we do this everywhere. And because I want them to be aware the way that I was aware of the things that are around me. So people always laugh. They're like, how do you see this stuff? It's like, how do you not? You know, I'm aware because I was trained to be aware from a really young age. I understand why you're not, but you're an adult now. Take a look around. So what's out of place? I see, grown people defecating at the bus stop on Pacific Avenue in Ben Holt, on the street and, just hunched over. And I'm driving by and it's like, just another day in Stockton. Wow. And, but if I took a moment to take a picture of every weird thing that I saw, all you would see is just bad things about Stockton. And I really don't want to do that. I only try to highlight the things that can be fixed. And it's like, hey, let's fix this.
So what are policy recommendations, you think? I mean...
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, one of the things that we brought up with the budget process is a lien forgiveness program, which would allow somebody to come in and rehab a property that has these exorbitant fees on it. I mean, I think about the house, the duplex on Hunter that just caught fire again and now has been demoed. Well, that demolition costs like $30,000. Well, now to have somebody come in there and build on that property again, it already had fines and fees and all this other stuff on it. Add on the demolition. Now for somebody to go in there and develop it, it's not going to
ton of money.
They're not. It's not going to pencil out. So I know at the corner of Acacia and Madison, we tore down a Victorian, and we had somebody who said I can go in and develop it, and I have somebody who will demo it as well. So the city doesn't have to. And the city was just like, we got to demo it tomorrow because it's a safety thing. And I had him say he would do that piece of property and Kitty Corner, which is like 4 townhome plexes or something like that, which are continually graffitied, that are uninhabitable. You just can't. And I'm like, okay, we need to do a better job of turning these properties around so we don't have transients going in, we don't have squatters going in, we don't have opportunists taking advantage and then potentially creating a fire where people could get seriously hurt. So that's one of them. The other thing is I've really looked at the recycling ordinance that we have, and I'm at the point now where I want recycling centers only to process cans, glass, and plastic. That's it. If you want to recycle something else, like I saw a guy with a street sign going down the street to recycle. It's metal. A street sign. I'm like, no. Why would a recycler even think to take something like that? But there are people that need to get their fix or whatever. They will take anything that's not bolted down. Taking the copper that's worth $20 from all the lights we have along the promenade downtown on the waterfront, that's going to cost us $300,000 to replace, and you got $20? Are you kidding me? So I want to get rid of that altogether. That if you want to process something other than plastic, glass, and aluminum, you have to go out to the county and you have to have a contractor's license or something. I mean, you have to have a viable reason as to why you have that property. Instead of me seeing people on bikes, with carrying whatever haul they got in and recycling it. I mean, that's one of the things I would really like to do. The unfortunate thing is, there's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through in order to do that. But I said jump away because I think that's a deterrent. I also look at the illegal dumping. I want cameras. I want cameras around town, and I want to prosecute and find the crap out of anybody that's dumping. Because guess what? You could take it to the dump for $25, $30. You could do that, but you're not. We have parts of the city where people dump every single day, and last year Public Works collected 186,000 tons, not pounds, but tons. Actually, well, it is pounds, but tons of garbage. I mean, 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. So times 186,000 times 2,000, we're talking about some serious things. That's millions of dollars to collect that and then take it to the proper place and paying the fees that the city of Stockton does. If we actually made it very difficult, and deterred people from wanting to do that dumping, because that adds to the blight. And guess what? That adds then to the crime, because you have people who are like, well, if the city doesn't care about the city, why should we?
Right.
And we're going to
Right.
do what we want to do. And if we don't slap people hard on those low-level crimes, they're just going to go to the next level and the next level, in my opinion. That's in my opinion. But as a high school teacher, with all the years I have, man, I hit those kids hard that first offense, and I let them know.
That's
That's
right.
not acceptable here. Maybe wherever else you came from before, but in here, in my house, my rules, it is not acceptable. So, you can have every opportunity, but we're not playing that game. And they turn it around. I mean, I can't.
If you hold people to a higher standard, they will live up to that
Oh,
standard.
sure.
That's true.
I mean, every time. I mean, you can, and we saw that. I had a weird childhood, unique from many others, but we've seen kids come from really rough neighborhoods that once they're in a stable environment and the rules are laid out for them and they understand the consequences, they'll live up to that. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And most of them will. Most of them, because there's sort of a peace. Excuse me. There's sort of a peace that comes from understanding the consequences and knowing that everyone's being held to the same standard. You know that if I'm going to get in trouble for it, you're going to get in trouble for it.
Right.
So you start to participate, and that's how culture is created.
Sure.
When everyone kind of agrees that these are the standards, these are the norms that we all agree that we want to be a part of. We used to deal with dumping behind our business. They would come up and it would be anything from branches from landscapers to household garbage. People that are getting evicted, so they hire somebody to come in and clean it out, and then those people dump it. So it's not even really that people whose names are on the letters. It's the company that got hired, and then they're dumping it. So we dealt with that a lot too. What I don't think anybody other than people that get out and about at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning know is the criminal transients and what part they play in that. And we had an issue just this last weekend where we have the Hope Chest next to us, which is a thrift store,
Right.
hospice. They donate the money to hospice, San Joaquin County Hospice. And people will come and they leave, printers or chairs and things like that to donate. Well, if there's anything electrical, the transients will come over and they start to strip it. So they'll bust open. It'll be a brand new printer that somebody can use, and they sell, and the money goes to San Joaquin County Hospice. They're busting it open to get to the copper inside. And so I'm running them off. And then 4:30 in the morning, I leave, and that particular night I went to Taco Bell to get something for dinner, and I always circle back around just to see what's going on when I'm not there. So it's now 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning. I swing back through, and they had built a fort out of the couches and stuff that were back there, so they could hide behind it. And they're back there, and they're stripping wire with their teeth.
Oh.
So they're busting open electronics to get the wires out. Then they're stripping it with their teeth, like they're just gnawing away at it to get the copper out so that they can recycle it. So I agree with you. If you can make it so that the little tiny pod recyclers aren't allowed to take copper anymore,
That's good.
then they have to show identification. Once these people are identified as property thieves and criminals, we have some sort of hot sheet or red sheet at the place where they're no longer able
And they have to
recycle.
wait 30 days.
Yeah.
That was my other thing. You have to wait 30 days to get that money so that we could really do a good search of where it might have come from.
Sure. If you're a legitimate contractor, that's
You'll wait
fine.
30
Yeah.
days.
That's not a big deal.
But a tweaker's not going to wait 30
Right.
days.
No.
A tweaker wants their money now. And that's the other thing. I didn't want it within city limits because recyclers are supposed to be tied. Those that take CRV are supposed to be tied to a distributor of that. Somebody who is, like a grocery store
Sure.
or whatever. But it doesn't necessarily happen. So I mean I've got some ideas, and I've shared them. We have different committees that have to discuss it. So I'm on the Community Improvement and Crime Committee, and we're going to be discussing with Vice Mayor Elbert Holman and Councilwoman Loftus. We're on that. We're going to be discussing, the issue of blight and illegal dumping and what we can do, putting up more signs, because we found that where the sign is, they won't put anything around it within like 10 feet of it, but they'll go 25 feet down and dump a whole bunch of stuff, not realizing that it's the whole
It's
area.
the same thing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and then what happens is you have individuals that then rummage through that, looking
Right.
for anything that they have, and then it gets spread everywhere. Because some people nicely dump things. I mean, they literally
They'll put
stack
bags
it up.
out.
And
Then the next person and then the
Yeah.
animals come
Sure.
by. And
Oh, yeah.
then the wind comes by.
So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things happening in Stockton, and I think we do have opportunities
Yeah.
to really make that change. And if people like yourself, Tony, and Kevin, and myself, and we all get together and really make a concerted effort, I really think with in conjunction with our police department and, district attorney and county and all that. I mean, if we really come together and work on this
I
and are
think so.
sincere about solving some of these issues, I think we can do it.
Yeah,
agree.
and I know this is only one conversation, but we need more conversations. And I also see that next week you're going to be also here
Yes.
for your update for your actual
Office hours.
And I welcome any listener and also other council people that want to help with the problem. Well, actually, I really think each council member should actually take their share in their districts and to do what you're doing. Because it takes really everyone, not just a portion, for it to be successful. I also see that maybe a community or a neighborhood watch campaign for the whole of Stockton. Because if we can do Stockton is home campaign, let's flip it around. Get rid of the homelessness, so Stockton can really be home, and we can be a place. It can be really a place that we're proud of, and we're safe.
Right.
Right. But before we end, I just wanted to say thank you really for this conversation. We can carry on. Please come back next week because we do have Councilwoman Fugazi again here, and I really, really had some ideas that came through my mind, and I thank you for sharing your stories,
Yeah,
Tony.
thank you for coming, Tony.
And I thank you also, Christina, for all we can go for 2 hours with you.
We could actually go till midnight if
Yeah, and thank you to our
as long as the
listeners.
illegal fireworks I can talk.
Yeah, we can talk more about that. And also I want to thank our board operator, who is our station manager, Dustin Breakbill. This is
Thank you,
Professor
Dustin.
Jimenez. Thank you so much. Stockton 360 News Magazine with KXVS, the voice of Stockton.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.